Welcome everyone, welcome to another preview. This is MetalCanyon and we'll be checking out a game by Usurpator called Wolfpack. This is a game that takes place in a World War II German submarine, or U-boat, und U-boat, and it is a simulation, a very much a simulation game concentrated on co-op multiplayer. If you've been watching my videos, you might have seen me many times talk about how much I would like some kind of a sci-fi or a submarine or something game where people actually crew their stations. A bit like that Star Trek, I think it's a VR game that's been released a couple of years ago. And this is pretty much my dream. And it's not just, it's not just arcade, it's actual simulation. Let me go and make a new lobby right now with a random password so nobody can join. Now, right now, this game is still in very early access. That's something you have to be aware about. But as far as that goes, there's no campaign at the moment. There's only a very sort of basic tutorial, which teaches you a little bit about how to perform the torpedo calculations, because like I said, this is a simulation, so you have to do that stuff yourself like they did in World War II. Or the other one, game mode, is the skirmish, which is where you'll be spending most of your time either alone or with friends. And yes, before you ask, this game can be played alone. It is possible. I've tried it. I've sunk a convoy like that, but it is very difficult at times, especially when a lot of things have to happen all at once. So anyway, we've got a few settings here. We can select which day of the year it is, which of course changes the time of day. Well, not time of day, but changes the light a little bit, because of course the closer you get to December, the less daylight you will have. So there we go. We've only got a few hours of daylight here. You've also got the location: North Sea, Baltic Sea, Norwegian Sea, or Bay of Biscay. But we've also got friendly fire, which is interesting because even though each submarine is currently crewed by 5 people, you can have up to 4 submarines, which means 20 people in a multiplayer game all at once. And friendly fire, I suppose, means that you can hit the others with deck guns, torpedoes, and so on and so forth. We'll leave the weather on clear and difficulty on medium for now. This just means how much tonnage you need to sink and the possibility of enemy escorts appearing. So we will do this and start. Now this preview will be consisting of 2 parts. We start over there in BF. If you see that little BF 57 quadrant is, there it is, well, colored in. Yeah, it'll be 2 parts. One will be this part. So here's the U-boats before I continue. We've got 4 of them: U-552, 564, 307, and of course the 96. I'll join as the captain. Now, this is pretty cool. This is the pre-lobby, I suppose. I mean, that was the pre-lobby. This is the lobby now. And this is where you can get your crew together. So everyone can join their preferred position. You can also set your own password for the submarine you are operating within the actual multiplayer game. So that's a pretty nice touch. Let's start the mission. It doesn't really matter at this point what I choose here because I'm alone on the boat. And also choosing your role in a multiplayer game doesn't necessarily mean that that exact person has to be the captain, because of course everything you do on this ship is depending on you. So if the helmsman suddenly decides to become the captain, if everyone agrees, then, more power to him. Anyway, that's beside the point. Something I would really like to mention first before we really begin with a preview is that this is amazing. This game is being created by 2 people. You've heard me right. 2 people. Look at the amount of loving detail. I've seen these 2 guys go out to actual German submarines from World War II, take photos and, painstakingly go through actual technical manuals, which were very interesting to read. Even though, of course, it's all in German, which I'm sort of broken in, I'm pretty brokey German for the moment. But yeah, the submarine is beautifully detailed, both outside and in. There's still more stuff to do, I believe, but, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And not only that, despite the fact that this is a very early access game, I'm used to very early access games running like, well, not running very well at all. And this game runs beautifully. Everything is on absolute maximum, and it runs just beautifully. Also, one more thing I would like to say, and then really we'll start with the actual preview. This first part will be just me talking about the mechanics. We probably won't do any real battle, because the second part will be done with almost a full complement of crew. And that should be a lot more fun, and will give you a lot more idea of what this game is like to play. Look at this. This is beautiful. Also at nighttime. And yeah, that part will have not much commentary, because most of the stuff will be communicating with my crew. And let's see where the convoy is, so I can show you that as well. Don't see any smokestacks at the moment. Oops. There's the rear of the boat. Now, the way skirmish works is that you are almost dropped about 10-ish kilometers, 10 to 12 kilometers from a convoy. Now, depending on weather conditions, which apparently now is giving me problems. Okay, I cannot find them. Let's go and see. So yes, this will be about mechanics. This game, like I said, is a simulation. So there are no little buttons which say crash dive and the boat will suddenly start diving underwater. No, if you wish to dive, you will have to flood the forward and aft ballast tanks. The forward was here, the aft are here. And if you don't close these vents afterwards, they will, you know, keep being open. That's it. There's the bilge pump here, which, you know, because the submarines are not really completely watertight, a slight bit of water may get in, especially at deeper, when you're deeper in the water. So that can be a problem. You also have your ballast tanks here. If you want to blow them, you've got your compressed air in the middle, which of course is very important, because if you're out of compressed air, you cannot really blow water out of the ballast tanks. And you've got your negative pressure tanks here, which allow you to put water in or blow water out of the tank. Now, this is mostly used for either crash diving, when you fully flood it, or it's also used, at least by me, for slightly adjusting the way the boat behaves when submerged at periscope depth, especially because that's very important to keep a constant depth. Here is the diving station where you can control both of the diving planes at the front and the rear of the boat, which are only really useful when you have some speed going. So let's say above 1-2 knots maybe. This is your tachograph. Well, not telegraph, where you can decide what kind of speed the boat will be going at, whether you're going to electric engines, diesel engines. The attention really at the moment doesn't do anything. I think it only sounds the bell, like so. And of course, you're still going half speed. You've got also both engines 10 slower, which I think, yeah, only goes 10 RPM slower. That's pretty cool. I've never actually tried that one yet. And of course, you've got the reverse speeds and the charge batteries. Now, here's the really cool part. When we were testing the game out and playing with Dr. Loco, one of the things we noticed is that when we came back up to the surface, we had used a bit of electrical power from our batteries. So we wanted to charge the batteries. Now, the way they charge the batteries on these German submarines was to have one diesel engines for propulsion and then use the other one to charge the batteries. But of course, as soon as you do that, the port side propeller stops moving slowly. There you go, we're losing speed and we're actually turning to port. So you have to compensate with some starboard rudder. And of course, look at that. The propeller does not stop immediately. it is slowly spinning down, which means that we'll have to compensate more and more. About 6 to 7 degrees, I find, is the sweet spot if you have one engine running. Of course, this also depends on how fast the starboard engine is running, or vice versa. But, you know, I just wanted to show you that this is the level of detail we're dealing with here. This is the level of simulation, and it's absolutely brilliant. Now let me go to the hydrophone station. I do apologize, I'll probably be all over the place with what I show you because it's just exciting. So if I go to the hydrophone station, right now, we only hear, well, pretty much nothing because we need to be submerged for the hydrophone. A really nice touch is the record player. You can play various songs over here, various very old songs, like It's a Long Way to Tipperary. You can set where the speakers will be playing, how loud they will be playing, indoor and outdoor. It's just... Let me stop that. Oh yeah, let me also get rid of the little tutorial down on the bottom. There. It's gone. That always pops up. It doesn't matter really. So over here we have, obviously, the hydrophone is used for listening for propeller sounds and other sounds like depth charges and so on when you're underwater. This will also allow us to find the convoy in case we don't see it visually. Because of course, like I said, this with skirmish, hydrophone, for most of the time, it's not really that useful, unless, of course, when you're submerged and trying to escape destroyers, because you're always placed so close to the enemy convoy that you can just sprint into position and then attack it. But that will become much more useful later on when the actual campaign is implemented. I believe there will be a campaign and other sorts of missions. So this is the radio direction finder, which is very cool. This is how you turn the antenna up top, and here's the direction finder. You can change the volume, but I don't think this really works at the moment. You can change the band, there you go, and you can change the frequency. So there's a lot of stuff to fiddle about with, and this is to find, I'm assuming, enemy signals. So you can also pinpoint where the enemy signals are coming from. I don't see a radar detector here yet. So I don't know, this is 1939, I don't think they had, I don't think they had radar detectors there yet. But this is also interesting. You've got a receiving channel and a transmitting channel. And this is for, I believe, when you're playing with other people, with other boats in the play. This is how you can communicate with them. Obviously, you could all just get on, you know, TeamSpeak or Discord or Steam Voice, and this would be obsolete. But if you want to simulate it, then you will actually use the radio. So if you want to communicate with another boat, you have to use the Enigma machine, which is very cool. It actually works. So there's a whole tutorial about it, how to actually use it. So for example, if I'm saying, "Hi, how are you?" it would give me different inputs, like H would be W now, but of course if I press it again, H will be X, which means that you have to send a plain key and then a secure key to the other boat so they can decrypt your message. And you also have to, of course, set your Enigma to the proper... Oh, what's going on? Oops, how did I change that last time? Oh, there we go. You have to set your Enigma key. So, for example, if someone sends me a plain key of, I don't know, AFG, I'll put it on AFG. And then the secret key comes in as QWE. That means the actual key I need to put in is ZPP. So I would put in ZPP, and now I would be able to decode what they are sending me. Oops, there. So now I can actually type things in. Now here's also another layer of very cool thing. Here's the telegraph key. If I press A, there we go, or T, G, H, or of course the SOS. Now, that's so cool. Now, I was in one little multiplayer game where we didn't really play because nobody was actually doing things properly, or I think everyone was at Discord and I just randomly joined and I had no idea what was going on. So I came to this room. There was a radio operator here using the telegraph. He wasn't actually transmitting, he was listening. And as soon as I got close, the game shows you the letters on the center of the screen, but very briefly, so you have to actually write things down, like maybe in your notes, but I don't think the letters would actually appear if you have the notes up. So you have to write it down and then slowly type everything in to decode it. It's brilliant. It takes some time, but it's absolutely brilliant and really immerses you in the whole simulation and the whole world of these World War II submarines. Over here we've got the navigation chart, and of course, because this is a simulation, it gets quite complicated. Now, when you're surface, the game actually does track where your boat is. I believe... I'm not sure. I'm actually just guessing here, but I think what they're going to do is actually give the navigator a sextant, so you will have to get the position of the boat yourself, whether it's by stars or by where the sun is, the position of the sun, but I'm not sure. So right now, the boat is tracked in real time as if you had some sort of GPS, which of course in World War II was not a thing. And you can then, you know, draw where you're going. Right now our heading is... what's our heading? We don't have the heading here. Our heading is 104-ish. So for example, I would do 104 there. That's our heading currently. So let's say we're going to go for 2 kilometers. You can of course set what speed we're going at. We're going at 18 knots at the moment, which would mean that I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It's quite complicated. So whoever is going to be doing the navigation has to get to know these things. And in fact, there is a manual here which explains these things quite well, although they can get confusing. But the manual does take care of most of the basic stuff you need to know about how the game works. So I know that a lot of this stuff, for example, look at this, a lot of this stuff will seem scary, and it is, but as soon as you start actually reading and practicing, you will find that you can learn it very, very quickly, and then it just becomes extraordinarily satisfying when the crew does its job, knows what to do, and everything comes together and you sink the convoy. It is just absolutely amazing. Now over here we've got the alarm button, which there's a few alarm buttons here and there. Of course, if you're all on voice chat, that's not necessary, but it's a very nice touch. You've got the night light here, so if you're doing things at night, you can turn on the red lights, which apparently help with vision. You can much easily see in the dark if your lights are if your eyes are used to red lighting. Over here we've got our Echo Ranger. So if I check what's the depth, it's actually past 100 meters right now. I think this is the passive one. So if we swap over to the active one, it has a lot more range. But I think, yeah, it's past 1 kilometer depth over here. So we can go as deep as we want without actually, you know, crushing the boat. So I think I went to about 180 and it was complaining quite a bit, and I was taking on a little bit of water, so that was a bit scary. We wouldn't be able to stay there for a while. This is a bilge pump, which I already mentioned before. You can use it. It uses compressed air, just like blowing the ballast tanks and negative tanks does. So you have to be careful about your compressed air. If you run out, not a good thing. You get it by using the compressor. Please, if you have headphones on, watch out. This is going to be extraordinarily loud. Are you ready? Don't say I didn't warn you. It's gonna get loud. Okay, we'll shut that off. The compressor is very loud, but you have to shut it off when you have enough compressed air, otherwise it's just doing nothing. So let's go up to the conning tower. This is where you will be doing your attacks from. Oh yeah, wait a second. I didn't show you. Here's the periscope host. Switch. This is the observation periscope. So you can use this to try and find your quarry. And of course... Oh, No. Now, the observation has a bigger lens. It is... Oh, look at the dive planes down there. That's cool. It is more easy to spot, so you will want to be careful using it. Although, if you're submerged and you're careful with the depth, so these things don't stick out too much, I found that it's pretty good. They won't necessarily find you, especially at night when a submarine is just very, very difficult to spot, full stop. So let's go up here to the conning tower. This is where usually the captain will use the attack periscope and someone will be using the torpedo data computer. Now, in order to... I cannot really show you this, but like I said, there will be a full gameplay after this, so this will be a very long video. Now, this is a attack periscope which has much smaller lens, but it's also got a much smaller profile, so it's more difficult to spot, but it does pretty much everything the observation periscope does, and allows you to set up your attacks. Now, because this is a simulation, you will have to do everything as the crew in World War II did. So first, you'll have to actually recognize what you're looking at. So for example, let's say there's a merchant. You will have to learn how to recognize the ships with where their engines are placed. So for example, in the middle, what their superstructure is like. Let's say composite, which means it's just got one big structure. And where the islands are. So let's say it's got the islands in the front and the back. There we go. And then, of course, you also have masts, which is very interesting because these are masts you have to say, for example, from the front to back, you have to call out what kind of masts the ships have. So in this case, it would be mast, funnel, kingpin, I believe. So let's see. Mast, funnel, kingpin. No, that's not a kingpin then. What is that? Is it just another mast? Let's see if it's just another mast. No, it's not that either. Then that has to be a kingpin. It's a mast king... Whoop, whoop. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Oh, where's my mouse? Okay, let's try... let's try to do this again. Mast, kingpin, funnel, mast. There we go. So that's what it is. That is a kingpin. That's how you identify ships, which is very important. You can add it to identified ship list, so you have it here on this list for easy reference. And now, of course, this will mean that you can see the mast height, what the maximum speed is, what the beam is, what the depth of the actual ship below the surface is, how long it is, and how many tons it is. 15,000. This is quite a juicy target. Now, these are very important because you will be using these for calculations to see what kind of speed they're currently doing, how and other calculations for your for the range and so on and so forth. Here is also a distance table if you want to approximate the range instead of calculating it yourself. Here's also a radio. Oh, there's a radio log. That's probably where the Enigma stuff goes in. And the direction finder log, interesting. Never actually used that. So, when all of this is done, you can put it into the target computer. So let's say we saw that it's going about 5.4 knots, that its drought is 6 meters, so we'll say 4 meters depth for the torpedo. Range is 2 kilometers. There we go. The length is not really important unless you're doing salvos, because that will do the spread angle. So we're pretty much done with this. And of course, I would slave the angle tracking to the attack periscope, which means that the angle and bow will be automatically done, calculated. You don't have to do that, because otherwise this is one of the most difficult things to do yourself. It is all guesstimation. Anyway, and then you simply use the periscope and fire off a torpedo. Oh, there he goes. Of course, it's gonna hit nothing here, but there it goes. The first torpedo was gone. We have 11 left, and this will be reloaded in a bit. Of course, I think the reload times are not very realistic at the moment for some reason. They're far too fast, But maybe that's just for the skirmish. Now up here we've got the UZO, which is just a pair of binoculars, but it can be slaved to the TDC because it's mounted on this thing, on this pedestal. There's the radio receiver antenna. We've also got some rudder controls here, so we can steer the ship here as well. This is the observation periscope here with that little lens. We've got our heading, and we've got an anti-aircraft gun, which I've never used before. It's pretty cool. And obviously you can also go over here to the top of the ship where the loud diesels are. Look at that. That's loud. Don't fall down. And on the other side, I think this is for loading torpedoes, this hatch, but of course this is all just fluff. But it's just very nicely detailed, you know? Oh, it's stuck a little bit. Oh no. There we go. Whew. Like I said, this is very early access. We haven't really seen any bugs apart from the angle on bow bug, I think. So here's the deck gun. There we go. Set the distance and then fire. It's pretty satisfying. That's another thing. Not just the visual effects and the specular reflections and so on. Also, the sound effects are absolutely exquisite, I would say. Let me also show you how it looks when you dive. And this is... wow, this is already pretty much half an hour. And let me say, this game requires patience, because a lot of the time you'll be sprinting into place to intercept a convoy. So you have to be patient, because it's going to take a long time. Usually, it takes from 2 to 3 hours per session, per skirmish session. And that's on medium settings, so it's not that many ships and destroyers. So, if you want to dive, the first thing you want to do is close the hatch, because otherwise, water rushes in, and you're done. There we go. Let's close that and let's get down. Let's flood the forward and aft ballast tanks. Let's do that. Water is rushing in. You can hear that. It's pretty brilliant. I love the sound effects. Let's also switch over to electric engines already, even though it's a little early, but we don't want to flood them. They can flood and they will take a while to get back and running. And of course, underwater you cannot use diesel engines. Let's also go full on the dive planes. There we go. 35 degrees on forward and 30 degrees on aft planes. So now the ballast tanks are almost full. The forward one is full, and the rear one, I mean the aft one, will be full in just a moment. What I also like to do, of course, is to set a slight bit of water in the negative pressure tank, so I have the perfect buoyancy I want. Otherwise, just filling these ballast tanks gives you neutral buoyancy, but it requires the dive officer to keep an eye out on, you know, the depth and keep it there, because it will fluctuate a little bit all the time. So about 11.5 meters I find is very good for the both of the periscopes. The attack periscope can go higher than the observation periscope, but like this is pretty good. You can see that we are sinking ever so slightly. We'll stabilize a little bit, but we'll have to correct that. So if I look at the periscope now, it'll look a lot different. There we go. We're just above the water, which is good. So we're not very visible at all. But of course, like I said, if the boat keeps sinking slowly, you won't be able to see anything because you'll be underwater. Now we can actually go to full stop and check the hydrophones. There we go. So let's get some gain up there, and we'll leave that as is, full volume. Oh. There they are. No? There they are. Okay. They're quite far away. So they are at about heading 220. Almost completely behind us. And there's definitely a destroyer there as well. You can hear the faster RPMs of a destroyer screw or propeller. So if you turn up the gain too much, it'll all get distorted. And this is how you know, you have to get experience to see how far they are. But of course, there is a very complicated sort of way of mapping out where the enemy is. According to hydrophone readings, you can sort of triangulate them. But like I said, I haven't gotten into that yet. I've mostly gotten into diving and calculating torpedo solutions and so on. So anyway, this is already past 30 minutes. I hope you've liked this. I know this was a little bit rushed. There's a lot of stuff to learn here. But now I will actually show you a full co-op play with a crew. And hopefully we'll be able to sink some ships. Let me just say before that happens, this is an absolutely magnificent game that's not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. This requires patience. It requires cooperation. It requires obedience in a way. If everyone's gonna run around thinking they can be a hero, it's wrong. The captain cannot be a hero alone. The dive officer cannot be a hero alone. It has to work like a crew. And when it does, it is a well-oiled machine that gets results. And I tell you, it is a fantastic, extremely satisfying feeling when everyone does their jobs according to the captain or, you know, whoever, and you sink almost an entire convoy. It is absolutely brilliant. So this will definitely get my MetalCanyon seal of approval even now in this very, very early access period. Both of the developers are, I think, extraordinarily talented and devoted to this. And they're also avid submarine fans, of course. And I think it shows. Anyway, don't let me stop you now. If you like the next probably 2 to 3 hours of the video, I don't know if I'm gonna split it or not. Maybe to make it a little bit more... Actually, you know what? I'm going to split it, and the next parts are going to be the actual co-op gameplay. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and do please click down in the description on the links for the actual gameplay. Have a good one.